There are places on Earth that were never meant for humans to set foot in. Yet they have become tourist destinations where even the smallest mistake can cost a life. Sheer cliffs, where a single misstep can send you falling hundreds of meters below. Suspension bridges swaying violently above deep ravines. And even oceans, where everything can change in seconds with massive waves, unpredictable currents, and sudden threats from large predators. These are not ordinary trips, but environments that directly test the limits of human survival. In today's video, we step into the most dangerous destinations on Earth, where every step is a gamble, and the only question left is whether you have the courage to keep going. The Abuna Yamata-gu Church, one of the world's oldest Christian churches, is carved directly into the sheer cliff face of a towering sandstone peak in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, believed to have been constructed around the 5th or 6th century AD. The final segment of the journey to the church is extremely steep and slippery, requiring a vertical climb on a smooth cliff, relying solely on small, natural or hand-carved holds for hands and feet. Its towering elevation causes dizziness and altitude sickness, exposing visitors to intense sun, strong winds, or extreme temperatures, leading to rapid exhaustion. This journey demands excellent physical fitness, stamina, and crucially, no fear of heights, making it unsuitable for individuals with heart conditions, high blood pressure, or severe acrophobia. Adjacent to the church lies a burial site for those who completed the perilous trek, believing they would rest closer to God. The Qiantang River is the grand stage of hydrology and holds the record for the greatest tidal bore on Earth. Do not let the windless sky fool you, because from miles away, a roar like the hoofbeats of a massive army already signals that a violent surge is approaching. In an instant, the flat river surface rises into white walls of water and charges forward with explosive force like a giant silver dragon racing through the channel. Even more extraordinary, intersecting tidal flows can shape enormous T or V patterns across the river, turning the water into a geometric display filled with danger. Wave fronts as high as a 3-story building are ready to knock down and swallow anything along the bank, from trees to vehicles. Despite the danger, this remains the only place where extreme surfers ride the back of this sediment-heavy monster for journeys that can stretch for dozens of miles. Angel's Landing is one of the most dangerous hiking routes in the United States due to its narrow path and significant elevation concentrated in the final section of the trail. The sandstone formation rises about 1,490 feet above the Virgin River, creating a steep ridge exposed to strong wind and changing weather conditions. The most challenging part is the final half mile, where the trail narrows to less than 3 feet, in some sections with sheer drop-offs on both sides and no protective barriers. To pass this section, hikers must hold onto a system of heavy chains anchored directly into the rock, serving as the only support on surfaces that can be hot or slippery depending on conditions. The combination of height and narrow space creates intense psychological pressure, making balance and careful movement essential for safety. Since 2022, the number of visitors has been controlled through a permit lottery system to limit daily access to this high-risk route. On sheer cliffs, rising more than 980 feet above the wild mountains of Nepal, brave hunters carry out a dangerous fight for survival in search of the legendary mad honey. They hang, suspended from fragile handmade rope ladders like pendulums in mid-air, where a single strong mountain gust is enough to push them toward the abyss below. Their opponent is the largest honeybee species in the world, about the size of a human thumb, ready to pour out like black clouds and attack any intruder with stings that pierce deep into flesh. Even while facing choking toxic smoke and painful stings that drive through the skin, the hunters still hold their position with bare hands and bare feet pressed against the rock face. The dark red honey they collect can trigger powerful hallucinations and temporary muscle paralysis, which is why it commands a very high price on the black market. Before every expedition, the Gurung people perform rituals to honor the mountain spirits because they see this honey as a sacred gift and believe that one small mistake can send a hunter falling from the cliff. Helmken Falls is regarded as the most dangerous ice climbing sanctuary on Earth. This is the only place in the world where thick ice clings to heavily overhanging rock walls, forcing climbers to hang almost parallel to the ground throughout the climb. These ice formations hang from the ceiling of a huge cavern behind the waterfall, and they are long, sharp, and blade-like, with sizes that can match a bus. The ice here is very brittle and porous, so it can break off at any moment because of vibration or the force of wind coming from the waterfall. For that reason, climbers must listen carefully to the sound of the ice to judge whether a position is stable enough to support body weight. Even with temperatures dropping to -22 degrees Fahrenheit and the constant danger of ice collapse, climbers still try to conquer these fragile but extraordinary ice structures as one of nature's final limits. Nazaré is the most extreme big-wave surfing ground on Earth, holding a Guinness World Record for waves higher than 85 feet, equal to an 8-story building. This force comes from an underwater canyon, about 16,404 feet deep, that works like a giant funnel, compressing energy and sending massive walls of water straight toward the shore. On the wave face, athletes can reach about 50 miles per hour, about the speed of a motorcycle at full throttle on a highway. At that speed, the water feels like concrete, turning every fall into a very heavy impact, so surfers must use jet skis to tow them into the exact drop point. Rescue teams remain on duty 24 hours a day, ready to rush into the death zone and save people within seconds. From the top of São Miguel Arcanjo Fort beside the cliff edge, you can feel the ground shake and heavy spray fill the air as the waves break right in front of you. Only a thin rock ledge stands between you and death. Located right at the edge of Victoria Falls, Devil's Pool is the most dangerous infinity pool on Earth, at a height of more than 328 feet. Right below your feet, thousands of tons of water are roaring and plunging straight into the abyss. The secret lies in a raised rock ledge beneath the surface, the only barrier keeping you from the violent current of the Zambezi River. But this door opens only from August to January each year. During high water season, it becomes a ferocious waterfall, ready to swallow everything. Here, you can sit in the devil's armchair and lean out over the deep chasm below. It is a breath-stopping experience, where the reward is a set of brilliant rainbows appearing almost within arm's reach. Do you dare step forward and touch this boundary? Kikshing Mountain Via Ferrata is the legendary steel sanctuary suspended in mid-air, holding the record for the most dangerous route with the ultimate infinite view in Zhangjiajie. At more than 4,900 feet above sea level, this course clings to nearly vertical limestone walls, forcing every movement to depend completely on steel rungs, fixed cables, and safety clips. Once a climber is attached to the system, there is almost no way back because the route continues across hundreds of feet of exposed cliff before reaching the exit point. Conditions also change very quickly here, as dense cloud can pour over the rock edge like a white waterfall, erase the entire view, and turn the surrounding space into a blank mass of fog. In some narrow sections, karst terrain and high elevation can reduce the stability of navigation signals, creating a strong sense of separation from the outside world. Abano Pass is the highest motorable mountain pass in Georgia and the entire Caucasus region, and it serves as the only land connection between Tusheti and the rest of the country. It has one of the longest seasonal closures in Europe, remaining open for only about 3 to 4 months, from June to October, before heavy snow and landslide risk shut it down completely. For dozens of miles, the surface consists entirely of dirt, mud, and loose gravel with no asphalt and no protective guardrails along steep, continuous gradients. The most distinctive segments are balcony roads carved directly into vertical rock faces, with a towering cliff on one side and an unprotected drop on the other. When winter closures begin, Tusheti becomes almost entirely isolated and can be reached only by helicopter. Shark Alley is known as the Great White Shark Capital of the world because this top predator gathers here in the highest concentration on the planet. In these waters, violent hunts take place as great white sharks launch completely out of the water to attack more than 60,000 fur seals living in the area. The two islands that form Shark Alley are clearly divided, with Dyer Island serving as a protected site for rare African penguins, while nearby Geyser Rock is a crowded base for seals. This area is also the pioneering site for cage diving, allowing people to approach great white sharks from only a few inches away in the cold Atlantic water. Another notable event is the appearance of a pair of orcas that hunt sharks for their livers, a threat that can drive the local great white population away for months. Tourism at Shark Alley contributes millions of US dollars each year to ocean conservation efforts in South Africa. La Jument is not only an offshore lighthouse, but a place where humans try to preserve a sign of life in a sea that can crush everything in an instant. The extremity of this place was carved into history on December 21st, 1989, when photographer Jean Guichard flew past at the exact moment a monstrous storm was hammering the entire tower. At the moment, lighthouse keeper Theodore Malgorn stepped out of the door. A gigantic wave almost as tall as a 10-story building surged in from behind and swallowed the whole lighthouse, leaving only about half a second between life and death. The lighthouse keepers had to avoid looking down at the waves for too long and always invent work to keep their minds occupied, because if the mind slips before reason does, this tower can turn into a deadly trap. Duquesnoy is the most persistent ash-producing factory on the planet, with a record of 93 uninterrupted years of eruptive activity since 1933. Despite the danger, many visitors still recklessly climb right up to the crater rim, while it is blasting out a massive ash column just to get a once-in-a-lifetime selfie. Standing in the heaving chest of the earth, the feeling of terror mixed with excitement as the heat blows straight into the face makes people forget that they are only one step away from death. In that position, a person has only a few seconds to react before being hit by molten rocks, known as volcanic bombs, or being surrounded by thick sulfur gas. When these images spread in late 2024, they were heavily criticized for treating human life carelessly. The Indonesian authorities immediately imposed a ban, placed these visitors on a blacklist, and permanently deported them from national conservation areas. Hanoi Train Street is a remarkable transforming street where a busy coffee shop can disappear in 30 seconds to make room for a train passing straight through. In the narrowest sections, the distance from the house walls to the railway tracks is only about 1.3 feet, so residents have to quickly pack up their belongings whenever a train is approaching. Because the space is so tight, the most important thing inside the cafes is not the drink menu, but the train timetable placed in the easiest positions to see. About 5 to 10 minutes before the train arrives, shop owners and residents begin blowing whistles, shouting warnings, and guiding visitors to stand tight against the wall for safety. Even with that close support, the most direct and hardest danger to control is still visitors taking photos or selfies on the tracks while the train is approaching. Authorities regularly place barriers and warning signs, but many visitors still try every way they can to experience this place once. In Hawaii, the spectacle of lava meets the ocean is not a quiet picture, but the most brutal geological forge on Earth. When molten rock at 2012 degrees Fahrenheit crashes straight into the ocean, the Earth is not only growing larger, but also screaming. Right at the contact zone, seawater can rise close to the boiling point, enough to kill fish and turn the surface into a danger zone, even for boats standing far away. But the more terrifying part lies in the explosions caused when seawater gets trapped inside the lava flow and then flashes into steam like a natural pressure bomb. When that happens, red-hot rocks as large as a refrigerator can be blasted into the air and become powerful enough to punch through tourist boats in the distance. Between thick acid smoke and razor-sharp glass dust embedding itself in the lungs, the boundary between life and death becomes thinner than ever. Huashan Plank Walk is consistently listed among the 10 most dangerous hiking trails on Earth by major travel magazines. It is a crude wooden path attached directly to the vertical cliff of South Peak on Mount Hua, where even a small mistake can lead to a drop of more than 6,560 feet. With a plank surface only about 11.8 inches wide, equal to about 1.5 handspans, visitors must hang on to iron chains and place their feet into carved footholds to get across the cliff. Because it was a dead end, everyone had to turn back the way they came. So when the two strangers passed each other in mid-air, they experienced the maximum amount of pain. Although double safety harnesses are now used, the strong shaking sensation remains very clear when heavy wind passes across the cliff. Despite the danger, thousands of couples still come here to hang gold locks in the hope that their love will remain as lasting as the cliffs of Mount Hua. Caminito del Rey is a walkway built along vertical rock walls in El Chorro Gorge and was once recorded as one of the most dangerous pedestrian routes in the world. The path runs at a height of over 980 feet above the canyon floor, making all movement dependent on structural support fixed into the rock face. During its original construction, workers had to hang on ropes and install steel beams directly into the cliff, without modern protective equipment. The old path deteriorated over time and left dangerous gaps in the concrete surface, which can still be seen beneath the newer walkway. Sections such as the Balconcillo de los Gaitanes suspension bridge require crossing open space between two cliffs under strong wind and extreme height. Fort Munro is one of the rare places in Pakistan where the elevation of the Sulayman Range creates a cool climate zone completely separated from the extreme heat of the surrounding plains. While many lower areas can rise above 122 degrees Fahrenheit during the hot season, the air at higher elevation drops sharply enough that people need warm clothing in a land otherwise known for intense heat. The road leading up follows the mountainside through many narrow and sharp bends, with a sheer rock wall on one side and a deep drop on the other, making travel heavily dependent on driving skill and vehicle control. Along that route, a large steel bridge spanning the gap between mountain cliffs becomes an important transport link in terrain that is deeply broken apart. Although the climate is more comfortable than in the lowlands, water here is extremely scarce because the limestone ground allows rainwater to sink quickly into the earth, forcing residents to rely on limited stored supplies. At the summit of Heavenly Capital Peak, the boundary between the landscape and the abyss is only as wide as a human foot. This is a narrow stone path, about 3.3 feet wide and 32.8 feet long, with deep drop-offs on both sides, and it is considered a severe test of courage for climbers. When crossing this section in thick fog, climbers can almost see nothing except the rock directly in front of their feet. The steps are carved directly into solid granite and rise at an almost vertical angle, forcing climbers to use both hands and feet to hold their position. Very high moisture keeps the stone steps slippery, and even one small mistake can lead to a serious accident because the area does not have dense guardrails. To protect the ecosystem, the summit is closed periodically so the vegetation can recover without human disturbance. Phoktal Monastery is a complex built from earth and stone attached directly to a steep cliff, considered one of the most isolated monasteries in the world due to its difficult access. The core of the monastery is located inside a large natural cave where structures are arranged within the space instead of being built on flat ground. To reach it, people must walk for hours along narrow trails fixed to the mountainside, with a vertical rock wall on one side and a deep drop on the other, making the journey fully dependent on human effort and weather stability. Winter temperatures can fall to about -22 degrees Fahrenheit, with snow lasting for months, and supply access almost completely cut off, forcing residents to rely on stored food and limited resources. Water flowing from the cave provides a stable year-round source, while the south-facing structure allows more sunlight to help retain heat in the cold environment. The Death Railway between Thailand and Myanmar is regarded as one of the railway projects with the highest death rates in modern history. According to many estimates, each mile of completed railway cost about 400 lives, creating a grim relationship between the line's length and the number of casualties. Under severe shortages of machinery, thousands of elephants were used to haul timber, steel, and other heavy materials through mud, rainforest, and dangerous mountain slopes. Steep terrain and unstable limestone geology caused many cliffside sections to face repeated landslide risk, especially during the rainy season. Most of the route on the Myanmar side has now been damaged or abandoned because of war and later historical disruption. However, the section from Nam Tok to Kanchanaburi in Thailand still operates and carries tourists every day along the same railway, tied to a past of very high human loss. Janmen Pass, Ape Road, is not only the most dangerous cliff path in Jianmen Pass, but is also known as the #1 perilous route under heaven. True to its name, this is a place where even monkeys are said to be intimidated. Instead of walking on a normal path, visitors are effectively suspended on a vertical cliff hundreds of feet above the ground, holding on through a system of cables and roughly hand-carved rock grooves. With a rock surface only about 5.9 inches wide, less than the span of a hand, every step becomes a direct encounter with death. This is a strictly one-way route, with no way back and no space for hesitation. Its danger is serious enough that visitors must pass a blood pressure check, meet weight requirements, and sign a liability waiver before they are allowed to begin this survival-like challenge. Peak Walk by Tissot is the only suspension bridge in the world that directly connects two mountain summits, forming an elevated passage in Switzerland. From this point, visitors can view a full 360-degree panorama with more than 24 peaks above 13,123 feet, including Mont Blanc, Matterhorn, and the Eiger, Mönch, Jungfrau trio within the same field of view. Although it stands in open air at high altitude, the bridge is engineered to withstand winds of 124 miles per hour, the load of 300 people, and dozens of tons of snow. At only about 31 inches wide, each step on the metal mesh floor becomes a direct encounter with crosswinds and the deep glacial drop immediately below. This structure is not only a place to stop and observe the landscape, but also the entrance to Glacier 3000. From here, visitors can continue with dog sled rides or walk on permanent ice even in the middle of bright summer. The Zhangjiajie Grand Canyon Glass Bridge was the longest and highest glass-bottom pedestrian bridge in the world at the time of its opening. Its transparent floor allows visitors to look straight down at the stream and untouched vegetation 984 feet below their feet. Although it looks fragile, the deck is actually built from 99 panels of triple-layered tempered glass, strong enough to support 800 people at once, and remain stable during strong earthquakes. To prove its strength, engineers once let volunteers strike the glass with sledgehammers, then drove a fully loaded Volvo SUV across those same cracked panels. Even with complete safety, the transparency still creates intense psychological pressure, and staff often have to guide or drag visitors who become too frightened to continue in the middle of the bridge. Only 13 days after opening in 2016, the bridge had to close for urgent upgrades because visitor numbers rose to 10 times the expected capacity. Gao Yiling is not a place for the faint-hearted dreamer because its dinosaur spine is a brutal test of courage. Bright red Danxia rocks rise from the middle of the lake with cliff faces of about 80 degrees, creating a deep drop that falls straight toward the dark blue water below. The most frightening experience is walking on a rock ridge only about 3 feet wide, where there was previously no protective railing at all. You have to face the suffocating feeling of stepping directly on a smooth sandstone surface shaped by millions of years of natural erosion. Even a little moisture or a light rain can turn the entire path into a slippery trap. Its long absence from tourism maps helped this place preserve its raw and rugged condition while continuing to challenge photographers who prefer dangerous locations. Door to Hell is a burning gas crater in the Karakum Desert and is often regarded as the largest eternal torch on Earth. Instead of going out after a few weeks as Soviet scientists expected in 1971, the fire has sustained its heat for more than 50 years without stopping. The orange glow from the crater is strong enough to be seen from space or from commercial aircraft flying across the area. Temperatures in the rock cracks around the rim can reach hundreds of degrees Fahrenheit, and the heat is strong enough for people near the edge to clearly feel the intense warmth rising from below. Visitors can camp near the rim and stay overnight to watch the changing sky blend with the red light rising from the ground through the night. Although Turkmenistan has repeatedly considered filling the crater to protect its gas resources, the site still attracts people drawn to extreme travel. Would you dare to test your courage on a 500-year-old bridge woven entirely from dried grass? This is Queswachica, the last rope bridge of the Inca Empire, more than 98 feet long, and made entirely from Highland Koya grass. Even though the structure remains in very good condition, local people still cut down the old bridge every year, let it fall into the Apurimac River, and then prepare to build it again as a ritual of renewal. At an elevation of about 12,139 feet between two steep cliffs, around 1,000 villagers work continuously for 3 days and nights to stretch the massive ropes using only human strength and natural rock anchors. Although it looks fragile and swings hard in the wind, the bridge remains strong enough to carry dozens of people at the same time. Peshuachaka is rebuilt during the second week of June each year, offering a rare chance to witness a bridge-building technique from the ancient Inca world. Cerro Negro is the youngest volcano in Central America, and also the only place on Earth that gave rise to the extreme sport of volcano boarding. Formed from nothing in 1850, this volcano rose to more than 2,297 feet in just 1 century, showing an unusually rapid geological growth rate. This is one of the rare places on Earth where life is almost completely erased, with no green growth, no animal species, and only an absolute black surface covering the entire mountain. Do not let its quiet appearance mislead you, because brushing aside the black ash at the summit reveals ground temperatures of about 140 to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, burning just beneath your feet. With more than 20 major eruptions in its short history, Cerro Negro is one of the most active and least predictable geological bodies in Central America. Because it is made of loose ash and cinders, every footprint or human trace is quickly erased by wind and seismic vibrations, restoring the mountain to a raw surface that looks almost untouched. Crossing the fear of height on steep hanging cables shows why Half Dome remains an enduring symbol of American adventure. Half Dome is a massive granite formation, rising nearly 4,921 feet above the valley floor, and 19th century explorers once declared it completely impossible to conquer on foot. To reach the summit, visitors must pull themselves up on 2 thin steel cables that climb steeply through open air. Half Dome also acts like a giant natural lightning rod, and there have been cases of climbers struck directly by lightning while gripping the steel cable system during sudden storms. At the outcrop called the diving board, visitors stand on a rock platform projecting into open space with a vertical drop of hundreds of feet below. Because the danger level is so high and demand is so intense, Half Dome is the only place in Yosemite that uses a strict permit lottery system to limit who can reach the top. Yongwu Road is a unique transportation structure with a spectacular ability to change its form according to the annual hydrological cycle. During the dry season, it serves as a regular land route spanning over 3 miles to facilitate local commuting. When the rainy season arrives, the rising lake water completely submerges the road surface and transforms the landscape into a magical waterway. The driving experience at this time is highly unusual because waves constantly crash against the undercarriage, while white foam sprays everywhere. Although it offers a beautiful view, this phenomenon also conceals serious safety risks. If the water floods deeper than 8 inches, authorities will immediately blockade the route to prevent vehicles from losing direction and plunging into the lake. Preikestolen is known as the most spectacular viewing point in the world, at an elevation of 1,982 feet. With no human intervention at all, this giant stone table, measuring about 82 feet on each side, was formed by glacial expansion around 10,000 years ago, creating astonishingly square cut edges. Right beneath the rock lies a deep crack, and the curse of the 7 destined couples still adds unease for travelers. Here, the biggest challenge is sitting comfortably with your feet right on the edge of the unguarded rock to feel the breeze blowing up from the space deep below. From the top, visitors can take in the full scale of Lysefjord, stretching about 26 miles, where the giant cruise ships below look as small as toys. Even though it receives hundreds of thousands of visitors, the Norwegian authorities still refuse to install safety railings, forcing people to take full responsibility for the danger in order to preserve the raw state of nature. Killer Road is consistently ranked among the 3 most dangerous roads on Earth by international adventure magazines. It is not an official transport project, but a rough track carved into a vertical cliff to connect villages cut off from the outside world. The road is cut deep into the mountain in an overhanging form, with a jagged rock roof hanging above vehicles and creating the feeling of being squeezed between stone and void. In some places, the road is only about 8.2 feet wide, just enough for a vehicle, so a mistake of only a few inches can send it down toward the fast-moving Chandrabhaga River below. The most dangerous moment comes when drivers must pass through waterfalls, crashing directly onto the windshield in the middle of the road, while visibility is nearly erased, and the edge beside them has no guardrail. Far below, the wrecks of unlucky vehicles remain scattered in the gorge, serving as warning markers for every vehicle that passes. Glacier Iceland is one of the most spectacular destinations for those who are passionate about conquering wild nature. Here, glacier hiking brings an intense thrill as you step directly onto giant masses of ice and look into deep blue cracks filled with mystery. If you want a stronger rush from above, the zipline crossing snowy canyons offers a wide view of the overwhelming grandeur of this land of ice and fire. In particular, exploring an ice cave in winter is an experience you cannot miss if you want to admire bright blue crystal like vaults. Even so, you must constantly hold your breath, because these enormous ice formations can fracture and collapse without warning. That unpredictable danger does not hold people back, but instead pushes the excitement of the expedition to an even greater extreme. Would you dare face deadly jaws inside the world's only glass cage at Crocosaurus Cove? Here, you will feel your heart stop in front of prehistoric monsters more than 16 feet long and weighing a ton, making everything around them look like tiny pieces of prey. The Cage of Death experience places you inside a transparent glass chamber where the line between survival and disaster is separated by only a few inches of thin glass with no metal bars protecting you. When the cage is lowered into the water, you come face to face with the strongest bite force on Earth at up to 3,700 psi, powerful enough to crush a car in a single instant. The threat does not come only from direct attacks, but also under the water, where you constantly feel watched by an invisible predator from the deepest dark corners. After pushing through extreme fear, you can hold a baby crocodile in your own hands and feel its cool skin and rapid heartbeat, a striking contrast to the rest of this heart-stopping experience. Panlong Highway is not a painting, but a ribbon of asphalt, winding across the Pamir Plateau at an elevation of about 13,780 feet. It is one of the most dangerous mountain roads in the world, with more than 600 consecutive hairpin turns that turn the entire route into a real test for highly experienced drivers. The main danger comes from continuous descent through hundreds of sharp bends, which can cause a vehicle's braking system to overheat and fail if the driver does not know how to control speed properly. In only about 30 minutes, travelers on this road can pass through all 4 seasons, from strong sun at the foot of the mountain to white snow at the top of the pass. Many people remember Panlong Highway through the message that once you finish the most winding roads, life from then on will be flat and straight. Because it lies in a sensitive border area and requires a special travel permit, this journey is not easy for the general public to access. Wansheng Ordovician is called a deadly sanctuary because it is home to the longest A-shaped glass bridge in the world. This structure projects away from the rock face for over 260 feet, which is 3 times longer than the famous glass bridge at the Grand Canyon in the United States. The most terrifying aspect is that upon reaching the pointed tip of the bridge, visitors will clearly feel a slight vibration synchronized with their footsteps or the wind. Although the construction has the capacity to support hundreds of people, the management always limits the number of participants to optimize the heart-stopping experience. Beyond the glass bridge, the site also has hanging bridges made of sparse planks spaced from about 1.6 to just over 3 feet apart, and they swing strongly with every step. This network of challenges attracts millions of visitors every year who come here specifically to experience the feeling of moving through fear high above the ground. Barracuda Point is consistently ranked among the top dive sites in the world and is widely seen by professional divers as a place they want to reach at least once. The entire island and dive site are actually the summit of an extinct volcano rising from the deep sea floor, creating a geological structure that stands apart in the open ocean. Its most distinctive feature is the way divers can become surrounded by thousands of big-eyed barracudas swimming in a dense spiral formation, creating a moving column that blocks much of the sunlight above. Standing inside that dense ring, you feel both excitement and breathlessness because the school can turn into chaos at any moment. With visibility reaching about 131 feet, the site can create a false sense of depth and make divers lose caution while following marine life. To protect this place, Malaysia allows no resorts, no overnight stays, and limits access to only 176 dive permits per day.
Be careful!
There are places on Earth that were never meant for human footsteps, yet in China, they have become destinations that attract thousands of visitors every year. Cliffside roads cling to vertical rock faces, where a single misstep can send you falling hundreds of feet below. Bridges held together by only a few cables shift with every step, causing the entire structure to sway beneath your feet. And there are waterways where currents and terrain can change within minutes, creating conditions that are nearly impossible to predict or control. These are not ordinary sightseeing experiences, but environments where risk is present in every movement. In today's video, we explore the most dangerous tourist attractions in China, where every step is not just an experience, but a direct test of human survival limits. The Mount Fanjing Golden Temple is known as the most dangerous and spectacular cloud temple on the planet. The temple sanctuary rests on the Red Cloud's golden summit, a natural stone spire protruding straight into the sky to a height of about 7,664 feet, equivalent to a massive 770-story building. The two temples are connected to each other by a tiny stone bridge stretched across a narrow fissure at a dizzying height, looking as if it is floating amidst the clouds. To touch the Golden Temple, visitors have no other choice but to hike up about 8,000 steep stone steps. At the most treacherous sections, climbers must cling tightly to iron chains anchored directly into the cliff. This mountain is covered by thick fog and clouds for over 200 days a year, making the stone steps extremely slippery and the slightest mistake during the climb a significant risk. Dushanzi Grand Canyon is known as the Great Scar of the Earth and is recognized as one of the most rugged, dramatic, and dangerous canyons in China. Its cliff system has a dense erosion structure that creates sharp, packed, and irregular surfaces, making the entire landform appear like continuous walls of rising rock. Because the surface material is porous, brittle, and still undergoing erosion, the areas near the rim can collapse easily, so climbing is strictly prohibited. Xinjiang has turned this terrain into a site for adventure tourism, and the most prominent structure is a glass bridge extending across the canyon. Near the edge, a system of giant swings also carries visitors outward into open air above the deep gorge. The canyon is also used for dawaz, the traditional Uyghur art of balancing on a high cable, performed without any protective net below. Tiger Leaping Gorge is one of the deepest and most treacherous canyons on the planet, where the river is suffocated between two perpetual snow mountain ranges. At the narrowest point of about 98 feet, the entire power of the water is compressed and smashes into boulders, creating terrifying explosions. The water flow of the Jinsha River carries a destructive force capable of crushing ancient tree trunks into wood chips and swallowing all boats. Along the cliff, the high-altitude walking trail is recognized as the most dangerous route in the world, bringing the experience of strolling on the edge of the abyss. The ultimate challenge lies in sections of the trail less than 3 feet wide, suspended between vertical cliffs and a deep chasm without guardrails. Due to being located on a highly active tectonic fault zone, rockfalls frequently plummet suddenly without any warning signs, turning the entire route into a zone of extreme risk. The Flaming Mountains are known as the Bagua Furnace of China, holds the national record for the hottest ground surface temperature, which has reached as high as 181.9 degrees Fahrenheit. To display that extreme heat, the tourist area built a thermometer about 39 feet tall in the shape of Sun Wukong's Ruyi staff, planted deep into the ground as a symbol of the desert's temperature. Temperatures here are high enough for local people and visitors to bury eggs in the sand or place them directly on sun-heated rocks and cook them naturally without using fire. It is also a well-known trekking destination, but under the burning heat, and among sandstone cliffs, with absolutely no trees for shade, the human body can lose water quickly and enter heat shock. In summer, many global car manufacturers also bring new vehicles here to test the endurance of tires, engines, and air conditioning systems under heat of around 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Welcome to the 80-second real-life ordeal, where the current is ready to toss and drag you to the bottom of a whirlpool without giving you a second to breathe. This waterway stretches for about 3 miles with an elevation drop of nearly 656 feet, forming incredibly treacherous vertical slopes. Because of the complex current structure and repeated interaction with strong waves, completing this short route can take up to 3 hours. At sharp bends, water pressure pushes into the raft with significant force, producing rotational motion that is difficult to control. In the downstream section, where flow becomes more stable, some tours allow small dogs under 22 pounds to be carried in specialized cages. Rafting activity here becomes a major economic driver during the hot season, especially from July to September, when visitor numbers increase and tours are often fully booked early in the day. Huku Waterfall is often described as a giant natural teapot where the current can pull objects downward within a very short time. The river narrows abruptly from about 984 feet to about 66 feet, producing powerful whirlpools and devastating water force. The impact against the rock walls sends up dense columns of muddy mist and turns the riverside area into a highly slippery and dangerous surface. Standing close to the rocky edge to watch the churning red-brown waterfall is a high-risk experience because wet mud and heavy spray can cover the path. The roar of thousands of tons of water striking the rock sounds like thunder and can cause rapid disorientation or panic in people standing nearby. During flood season, the water level often rises high enough to swallow safety barriers, forcing authorities to close the site urgently to prevent casualties. Shuangqiao Valley, located at the base of Mount Siguniang, is known as the premier ice climbing sanctuary in Asia, featuring over 100 naturally frozen waterfalls. When winter arrives, all the roaring cascades, plunging from cliffs hundreds of feet high, freeze, completely forming massive crystal ribbons suspended in mid-air. To conquer these vertical ice walls, climbers must use ice axes and crampons to pierce the freezing, slippery surface. This process demands extraordinary physical strength and intense concentration because even a minor mistake can lead to extremely disastrous consequences. Although the landscape here possesses a magnificent beauty, reminiscent of a fairy tale world, it always hides lurking death. Giant ice blocks, weighing thousands of pounds, can crack and crash down at any moment when the ambient temperature changes suddenly. The Qiantang River is the grand stage of hydrology and holds the record for the greatest tidal bore on Earth. Do not let the windless sky fool you, because from miles away, a roar like the hoofbeats of a massive army already signals that a violent surge is approaching. In an instant, the flat river surface rises into white walls of water and charges forward with explosive force like a giant silver dragon racing through the channel. Even more extraordinary, intersecting tidal flows can shape enormous T or V patterns across the river, turning the water into a geometric display filled with danger. Wave fronts as high as a 3-story building are ready to knock down and swallow anything along the bank, from trees to vehicles. Despite the danger, this remains the only place where extreme surfers ride the back of this sediment-heavy monster for journeys that can stretch for dozens of miles. At the summit of Heavenly Capital Peak, the boundary between the landscape and the abyss is only as wide as a human foot. This is a narrow stone path, about 3.3 feet wide and 32.8 feet long, with deep drop-offs on both sides, and it is considered a severe test of courage for climbers. When crossing this section in thick fog, climbers can almost see nothing except the rock directly in front of their feet. The steps are carved directly into solid granite and rise at an almost vertical angle, forcing climbers to use both hands and feet to hold their position. Very high moisture keeps the stone steps slippery, and even one small mistake can lead to a serious accident because the area does not have dense guardrails. To protect the ecosystem, the summit is closed periodically so the vegetation can recover without human disturbance. Taizi Peak is the most adventurous climbing route in the Sichuan region, earning the title of Cloud Knife due to its sharply dangerous ridges. The vertical cliffs here are evidence of permafrost erosion over millions of years, creating sharply carved surfaces. The topographical structure contains numerous narrow sections, forcing hikers to straddle the abyss as if performing an aerial balancing act. The winter camping experience on this mountain is likened to sleeping directly on a freezing block of ice. The temperature of -4 degrees Fahrenheit easily penetrates sleeping bags, causing your breath to instantly freeze into small snow patches on the tent ceiling. From this altitude, the winter cloud sea appears extremely dense and motionless, resembling a giant snow desert completely isolated from the world below. Jade Dragon Snow Mountain is the most majestic and extreme mountain in Yunnan, China, with 13 sacred peaks. Despite the sweltering summer, these peaks always wear a perpetual cloak of pure white snow. The tourist area includes a cable car system that transports visitors from the base to a transfer station at an elevation of about 14,785 feet. From this point, the route continues along wooden stairs leading to an observation platform at approximately 15,354 feet, which is the highest safe access point for visitors. At this elevation, reduced air pressure makes movement physically demanding, and many individuals rely on portable oxygen canisters to maintain stable breathing. Weather conditions in the area often change rapidly. Strong gusts of wind or blizzards can suddenly strike, ready to knock people down. Laojian Mountain is a majestic sanctuary located at an elevation of 7,218 feet, holding the record for the highest gold-plated architectural complex in China. The most magnificent highlight features gilded bronze pavilions rising from jagged stone peaks, seemingly suspended amidst a sea of white clouds. To access this spiritual space, visitors must push their physical limits on precarious cliffs and thousands of steep stairs. The sensation of looking down into the deep abyss right beneath your feet is certainly a terrifying experience for those afraid of heights. At this altitude, the weather changes extremely fast, especially in winter, when the temperature drops to 14 degrees Fahrenheit, making the frozen pathways incredibly dangerous. Despite this, the contrast between the pristine white snow and the regal golden hue of the architecture still creates a surreal visual masterpiece. Panlong Ancient Road in Xinjiang is often compared to a giant earth dragon coiling through the mountains and has become a route many adventure drivers want to conquer at least once. Although it is only about 19 miles long, the road contains more than 600 extremely tight hairpin turns, creating an unusual density of direction changes over a short distance. Even for people with strong balance or highly experienced drivers, being thrown from side to side through hundreds of sharp curves in a short time can still cause dizziness and nausea. The downhill journey across weathered mountain terrain with constant landslide risk also turns driving here into a serious test of skill. If a driver does not understand how to slow the vehicle with engine braking, the brake system can overheat easily and lose effectiveness completely. Because of these extreme environmental and design conditions, many well-known car brands choose this road as a testing ground to demonstrate the suspension system and traction control of new models. When visiting Dangxia Mountain, you cannot use muscle strength, but must use your courage to gamble on the vertical iron chain ladders piercing the blue sky. The most terrifying feature is the steepness from 80 to 90 degrees, causing the person behind to almost press their face against the heels of the person in front. The danger is pushed to the absolute limit, as this route has absolutely no safety harnesses or protective equipment whatsoever. The cliff surface becomes incredibly slippery when wet, so management must close this area during bad weather to avoid accidents. The most psychologically haunting thing on crowded holidays is the sight of dozens of tourists stranded and suspended on the chain midway up the cliff. Despite that danger, local porters still carry dozens of pounds of goods climbing to the mountain peak every single day. Yandang Mountain via Ferrata is one of the largest and most professional climbing routes in China. This iron cable cliff model began as an invention of the Italian army during the First World War and has now become an extreme sports activity. Visitors experience the feeling of crawling across a vertical rock wall at 90 degrees by gripping U-shaped iron rungs and clipping safety lines along a steel cable. Although it is presented as a tourist activity, just 1 second of carelessness while unclipping and reattaching a carabiner through an anchor point is enough for you to cut off your own lifeline. The fear rises highest when you step across the cable bridge between two mountain peaks with an empty abyss hundreds of meters deep and the sound of wind echoing right beneath your feet. The surprising part is that although the terrain is extremely frightening, the record for completing the hardest route here belongs to a boy only 11 years old. Mount Huashan holds the title of the most dangerous mountain under heaven, with some of the most terrifying cliffside walking routes on Earth. At Baichi Cliff, the stairs are carved directly into the rock face, forming a slope that rises at nearly 90 degrees. The stone steps are so narrow that they fit only the tip of a shoe, forcing climbers to grip iron chains tightly and pull themselves upward. The next bottleneck is Kanglong Ridge, which stretches out into mid-air at a width of less than 3.3 feet, creating the feeling of walking along a dragon's spine. The ultimate test is the Changkong Plank Walk, where visitors must crawl across wooden boards only about 12 inches wide, suspended at an elevation of more than 6,560 feet. The danger multiplies because this is a dead-end path, forcing them to hold their breath and squeeze past people coming the opposite way, right at the edge of the abyss. Jianmen Pass, Ape Road, is not only the most dangerous cliff path in Jianmen Pass, but is also known as the #1 perilous route under heaven. True to its name, this is a place where even monkeys are said to be intimidated. Instead of walking on a normal path, visitors are effectively suspended on a vertical cliff hundreds of feet above the ground, holding on through a system of cables and roughly hand-carved rock grooves. With a rock surface only about 5.9 inches wide, less than the span of a hand, every step becomes a direct encounter with death. This is a strictly one-way route, with no way back and no space for hesitation. Its danger is serious enough that visitors must pass a blood pressure check, meet weight requirements, and sign a liability waiver before they are allowed to begin this survival-like challenge. The Zhangjiajie Grand Canyon Glass Bridge is a great architectural masterpiece and also the most severe psychological test for tourists. This structure is suspended at an altitude of 984 feet, spanning two steep cliffs without needing any central support pillars. The entire structure is maintained by a massive anchored cable system and a floor assembled from 99 tempered glass panels capable of withstanding 800 people at once. However, that solidity is easily eclipsed when the transparent glass sinks into the fog, creating the illusion that pedestrians are floating in an invisible space. The pinnacle of adventure is the bungee jumping platform right in the middle of the bridge, where tourists cast themselves into a free fall from a height of 853 feet straight down into the deep valley. This immense attraction once drew 80,000 visitors, overloading the system and forcing the structure to close after less than 2 weeks of its debut. Tianmen Cave Suspension Bridge is the most adventurous highlight in the Wuling Valley, providing an extreme psychological challenge. Suspended at an altitude of nearly 656 feet, which is equivalent to a 60-story building, this structure makes even the bravest people fearful when looking down into the deep abyss. Because there is no central support pillar, this structure is strongly affected by the valley wind, creating dramatic shaking rhythms. The condition of the deep, sunless canyon, along with dense vegetation, keeps the humidity in this area at a very high level. Therefore, the bridge surface and wooden steps are always covered with dew and slippery due to moss or freezing in the winter. This journey ends when the bridge plunges straight into Tianmen Cave, a massive dark archway that resembles a mysterious entrance into the earth. The journey to explore Aiken Spring always beckons adventure lovers to find the place known as the Eye of the Earth. Standing in front of the bubbling and rumbling spring mouth, like a boiling pot, you will feel the wildness of nature, even though the water is actually very cool. This toxic water zone is a true dead land, as no animal dares to drink it, creating an exciting challenge for backpackers. The air, thick with a rotten egg smell, constantly tests the endurance of tourists and easily makes those who stand too long feel dizzy. The experience of walking on the red and yellow dirt layer brings a feeling of extreme thrill because underneath always hide mud puddles waiting to swallow people who step off the trail. Located right in the middle of an empty desert, hundreds of miles away from rescue stations, this trip requires high survival skills because any minor trouble can take your life. The Hanging Temple is voted as one of the 10 most dangerous and bizarre buildings in the world. Viewed from afar, the temple resembles a giant bird nest, clinging to a sheer cliff, with no foundation but merely suspended between the blue sky and the abyss. The flimsy wooden pillars beneath the floor are actually accessories added later to ease the fear of tourists, because the entire structure, weighing thousands of tons, is truly suspended on beams driven deep into the rock. The location of the temple was calculated ingeniously, with an overhanging cliff acting like a giant umbrella to prevent erosion from rain and harsh sunlight. Despite its extremely perilous position, the structure has stood firm against natural disasters for over 1,500 years, defying all modern construction laws. When walking on the wooden corridor, which is about 1.5 feet wide, you will clearly hear the floorboards creaking and feel a slight sway amidst the deep abyss with absolutely no safety net. G315 U-shaped road is a section of highway crossing the Gobi Desert and is known as the most dangerous photo stop road in China. Its greatest danger is the very deep U-shaped slope, where large trucks rushing downhill have great difficulty braking suddenly and can become a direct threat to anything in front of them. The risk becomes even greater because this area is frequently hit by sandstorms carrying high-speed quartz particles strong enough to strip vehicle paint and crack windshields. During major storms, sand can bury the road so quickly that within 15 minutes, the asphalt of G315 can disappear completely and leave vehicles trapped in a sea of sand. Even under these conditions, many visitors still lie in the middle of the road for photos, despite trucks descending with strong acceleration and almost no ability to brake suddenly. To prevent tragedy, authorities have installed AI cameras and high-power loudspeakers, while also imposing heavy fines and license suspension as a deterrent. Atulur is the most perilous vertical village in the world, known for a stairway to heaven that climbs nearly 3,281 feet along a cliff face. From a distance, the village looks as if it were placed on a giant rock shelf, backed by silver-grey cliffs that rise almost vertically and form a natural wall separating it completely from the modern world below. Before 2017, the only route in and out of the village was a series of hanging ladders made from forest vines and decayed wood, suspended in open air under highly dangerous conditions. Today, that system has been replaced by a steel staircase of 2,556 steps, but even in its current form, it still places heavy psychological pressure on experienced climbers. Some sections approach a 90-degree incline, forcing people to use both hands and both feet against the ladder and the rock surface in order to keep balance on the slippery cliff. For local residents, going down the mountain once a week on market day to exchange daily necessities is not an ordinary trip, but part of a survival routine. Yongwu Road is honored as the most beautiful underwater road in China and stands as one of the most bizarre and risky flooded tourist destinations in Asia. The experience of driving on this water usually only occurs in early summer, around June and July, when heavy rains cause the lake water to rise. Traveling on this slightly flooded road carries an extremely high risk because all road markings and boundaries are obscured by the murky water. Drivers must carefully navigate by following the row of marker posts on both sides, because a small mistake will send the car plunging into the deep water. Despite that danger, this route still attracts countless tourists and off-road driving enthusiasts coming to challenge themselves. When the water level exceeds the warning mark of 62 feet, the road is completely wiped out and turns Wucheng town into an isolated island. Via Ferrata is known as the deepest and most rigorous vertical drop sandstone climbing route in China at an altitude of over 4,921 feet. With a journey of clinging to iron pegs on a 90-degree vertical cliff lasting from 3 to 5 hours, this is truly a ruthless one-way path. Once you have locked your safety carabiner and stepped onto the cliff, you must move forward at all costs, because turning back on this precarious terrain is impossible. The most haunting moment on this route is having to step across a 551-foot steel ladder suspended completely in endless space. Beneath your heels, and the fragile rungs shuddering in the howling wind, lies a massive empty void as deep as a 50-story building. Your safety depends entirely on the weather, because just a sudden rain shower will instantly turn the sandstone cliff surface into an extremely dangerous slide. Gaoyiling is not a place for the faint-hearted dreamer, because its dinosaur spine is a brutal test of courage. Bright red Danxia rocks rise from the middle of the lake with cliff faces of about 80 degrees, creating a deep drop that falls straight toward the dark blue water below. The most frightening experience is walking on a rock ridge only about 3 feet wide, where there was previously no protective railing at all. You have to face the suffocating feeling of stepping directly on a smooth sandstone surface shaped by millions of years of natural erosion. Even a little moisture or a light rain can turn the entire path into a slippery trap. Its long absence from tourism maps helped this place preserve its raw and rugged condition, while continuing to challenge photographers who prefer dangerous locations. Experiencing Shiziguan, or the Bridge of Dreams, brings a mesmerizing beauty mixed with a heart-pounding feeling under every wheel rotation. The wooden surface, measuring about 15 feet wide, is just enough for vehicles to move, but also creates extreme suspense. The danger increases as vehicles weighing up to 6,000 pounds are allowed to run on a floating structure with absolutely no foundation pillars. Furthermore, the railings on both sides are very fragile, since they only serve an aesthetic and visual guiding purpose, lacking any load-bearing capacity. To ensure safety, the management sets a maximum speed of 12 miles per hour to avoid creating large waves that would shake the bridge violently. The tragedy of 5 people dying in May 2023 due to a speeding vehicle crashing through the railing serves as a profound warning about strictly obeying safety limits. Ordovician Wansheng Theme Park in Chongqing is an extreme adventure center known for the world's longest glass corridor extending from a cliff. Its most famous structure is Sky Porch, which projects nearly 262 feet beyond the mountain edge without any support below. So the moment visitors walk onto the glass floor, they feel suspended above a deep abyss. That tension continues through the park because its glass bridges are designed to sway under valley winds and footsteps instead of remaining rigid like ordinary bridges. In a more dangerous zone, the cliff swing uses ropes about 69 feet long to lift riders to a 90-degree angle and then release them into open air above a valley deeper than 984 feet. At the same site, the brave leap forces participants to jump across suspended metal planks without safety nets underneath. In 2018, a video recorded a visitor's safety cable slipping free just after a jump, showing that the level of risk here is extremely high. Do you have the courage to step onto a transparent tennis racket suspended in mid-air without a single point of support? This precarious corridor is located 1,640 feet above the river at the bottom of the canyon, which is equivalent to a building of over 160 stories, making anyone weak in the knees. With a completely transparent glass floor, stepping to the edge feels just like walking on air, with a deep abyss waiting right beneath your heels. Despite enduring strong winds in the void, the structure can still withstand a massive load of 440 tons, equal to the weight of 4,000 people standing at the same time. When night falls, thousands of lights combined with a massive fountain system surrounding the observation deck turn this place into a brilliantly glowing waterfall of light in the middle of the wilderness. However, on days with strong winds, water droplets blowing back onto the glass floor will make the walking experience extremely slippery and terrifying. Forget the Grand Canyon, because Shilingxia UFO glass platform has set a new world record by projecting itself 105 feet into thin air. True to its name, The observation deck is shaped like a giant hovering flying saucer and is famously dubbed the Eye of the Universe. Suspended precariously at an altitude of 1,312 feet, which is equivalent to a 130-story skyscraper, this height can easily cause those with acrophobia to experience dizziness, weakness, or complete paralysis. Unbelievably, despite weighing hundreds of tons, this entire massive structure completely lacks any supporting pillars from the valley floor. This marks the first time that super-hard and lightweight titanium alloy from the aerospace industry has been utilized to build an observation deck capable of holding thousands of people. Nevertheless, the management board only allows a maximum of 200 individuals on the glass floor at the same time to guarantee absolute safety. What is it about places that can take human life that draws us in so strongly? Across the planet, there are roads that look breathtaking, but beneath that beauty are risks that are always waiting. Some routes are carved directly into sheer cliff faces, so narrow that only one vehicle can pass. Just a moment of deviation can block the entire road for hours, right on the edge of a deep drop. Hardship is constant, yet people continue to cross these roads every day. Despite the risks, they keep moving, transporting goods and maintaining daily life on roads that allow no mistakes. Here, moving forward is not a choice, it is a necessity. Right now, step into the most dangerous roads on Earth, where every movement can determine what happens next. Would you dare drive straight into a tiger's mouth? Because this is a road where the smallest mistake can cost a life. At Lao Hu Tai, the overhanging rock hangs so low that if a vehicle hits a pothole, a rise of only about 2 inches is enough for the roof to strike the rock and throw the vehicle toward the cliff. The roadway is only about 19.7 feet wide, so when 2 trucks pass here, they must fold in their side mirrors and crawl forward inch by inch to avoid hitting the roof against the rock above or slipping toward the drop. At the narrowest point, the tires were only a hand's width from the edge of the cliff, forcing the driver to lean out the window to keep a close watch, as a slight misstep could send the entire vehicle plunging into the river below. Because of the complex geology and the cut rock wall, this area often experiences landslides or falling rocks. Today, modern mountain tunnels have been built to replace it, and the Lao Hu Tai section is now used mainly by visitors or smaller vehicles that want to experience the route. Liaofengkou is one of the road sections with the strongest natural wind in the world. Wind here often exceeds force 12, or more than 75 miles per hour, which is strong enough to overturn a heavy truck in a single instant. During blizzards, the whiteout effect removes the boundary between sky and ground, causing biological imbalance and almost completely disabling human orientation. Because of these conditions, the observation station must operate almost 24 hours a day and issue minute-by-minute gust warnings for vehicle convoys. If a vehicle stops for more than 15 minutes in the storm, snow can pile up to window height and turn the cab into an ice tomb, while temperatures drop below negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Even with that danger, for decades the Chinese government has carried out large-scale ecological restoration projects to stop this road from being erased by windblown sand. Abano Pass appears repeatedly on lists of the world's most dangerous roads published by international organizations. At an elevation of about 9,272 feet, there are sections where you can see yourself driving above the clouds. Across more than 43 miles of road, there is not a single foot of protective barrier, even though just inches from the wheels there are drops hundreds of feet deep. At the sharpest hairpin turns, waterfalls from the mountaintop strike the road directly, forcing drivers to move through fast-flowing water while their view is completely blocked by white spray. Along the route, many warning signs and small memorials stand right at the curves, marking the places where unlucky drivers fell into the ravine. The pass stays open for only about 4 to 5 months each year, usually from June to October, and for the rest of the year, the entire Tasheti region is cut off from the outside world by heavy snow. G315 U-shaped road is a section of highway crossing the Gobi Desert and is known as the most dangerous photo stop road in China. Its greatest danger is the very deep U-shaped slope, where large trucks rushing downhill have great difficulty braking suddenly and can become a direct threat to anything in front of them. The risk becomes even greater because this area is frequently hit by sandstorms carrying high-speed quartz particles strong enough to strip vehicle paint and crack windshields. During major storms, sand can bury the road so quickly that within 15 minutes, the asphalt of G315 can disappear completely and leave vehicles trapped in a sea of sand. Even under these conditions, many visitors still lie in the middle of the road for photos, despite trucks descending with strong acceleration and almost no ability to brake suddenly. To prevent tragedy, authorities have installed AI cameras and high-power loudspeakers, while also imposing heavy fines and license suspension as a deterrent. Sac Pass is ranked among the most dangerous roads in the world that people can still drive across. For 7 to 8 months each year, this pass, at an elevation of about 14,500 feet, is completely swallowed by snow, and its surface rejects both asphalt and concrete. It is an almost perfectly isolated space with no phone signal, no GPS, no rescue point, and no sign of human presence across the white terrain. Even in summer, a vehicle can be trapped between snow walls about 49 feet high, while freezing ice streams crash from the cliff directly onto the roof as the wheels cling to the edge. With no guardrails above, drops thousands of feet deep, drivers must reverse and inch forward repeatedly across loose rock and liquid mud just to squeeze the vehicle past the mountain wall. Before taking on the dangerous descent beyond the summit, every driver stops at the small temple at the top of the pass to pray for safety. Diaobiling is known as the dinosaur spine of China and is considered one of the most dangerous and spectacular roads in the world. Seen from above, the road does not run around the mountain slope, but sits directly on top of a narrow, rocky ridge, with steep abysses on both sides, creating the feeling of a thin thread laid on a knife edge. Unlike many modern mountain roads, several sections here have no guardrails or only low marker posts, so the road still keeps its original sense of danger. At its narrowest points, the surface is only wide enough for a single car, leaving no room for error even by a few inches. Strong gusts rising suddenly from the valley can shake tall vehicles and may even push them away from the narrow line of the road. Stepping onto the unguarded edge, you face clouds rising at waist level and the sensation of hanging above empty space while taking in a full 360-degree view of the Chinling Mountains. Killer Road continues to rank first on listings from global extreme terrain data platforms. The road hangs at an elevation of about 8,200 feet above sea level and cuts across barren, exposed, and severe mountain slopes. The entire route looks like a raw blast cut into solid rock, forming a half-round tunnel with a massive stone overhang hanging above it. The roadway fits only one vehicle, so when two drivers meet at a blind curve, one must reverse for hundreds of feet beside a steep drop, where even a very small steering error can send the vehicle over the edge. This is a completely isolated zone with no signal and no rescue force, so if a vehicle falls from the road, any attempt to intervene or recover it is almost entirely impossible. Even in this place with no room for error, travelers still sometimes see local nomads calmly walking livestock along the edge of the abyss. Peak Walk by Tissot ranks near the top among the highest pedestrian suspension bridges on Earth. It is the only suspension bridge in the world that directly connects two mountain summits, Peak Walk and Sex Rouge, instead of linking two cliff faces in the usual way. The bridge stands at an exact elevation of 9,747 feet, so without protective gear or sunglasses, visitors can easily suffer skin burns or snow blindness after only a short time. Its structure is designed to produce a light bounce and slight movement with each step, creating the sensation of walking on a soft strip suspended in open air. The deck uses steel mesh so snow cannot accumulate, allowing the bridge to support the weight of dozens of people at the same time, even during a snowstorm. Despite requiring a massive investment, this suspension bridge allows tourists to experience the thrill without spending a dime. Dushaguan hangs on steep cliff faces and is known as the throat of Yunnan. The path here is unusually narrow, measuring only 5 chi, about 4.9 feet wide, and it is carved directly into the cliff. Directly below the route lies a deep gorge where the dark green Guan River rushes through, creating the sense that the entire passage is suspended over open space. From this cliff, people can observe 5 transportation systems at the same time, including waterway traffic, the old road, the national highway, the expressway, and the railway, all running side by side in a confined corridor. In many sections, the rock overhang is very low, so visitors must bend their bodies to avoid hitting their heads, while also watching their footing to avoid slipping. At bottleneck sections only as wide as an arm span, 2 streams of people trying to pass each other in mid-air turn the crossing into a tense movement along the cliff. Pagal Nala is known as the worst nightmare in the Spiti region and holds the record as the traffic black spot with the most unstable water level on the Himalayas. The water here can appear or disappear suddenly, even under strong sunshine, because torrents can still rush down when glacier melt on the mountain peaks increases with the daytime temperature. The force of this meltwater is strong enough to sweep away large motorcycles or overturn heavy SUVs if a driver chooses the wrong line by only a few inches. To cross this point, drivers must keep the throttle steady and must not stop in the middle of the stream, because the wheels can sink immediately into the moving loose rock beneath the fast current. This is a critical bottleneck on Spiti's main road system. If even one vehicle breaks down here, the entire valley can be completely cut off for many hours or even many days. Dade's Gorge Road often appears on lists of the most frightening roads in the world. The road climbs to an elevation of more than 6,230 feet above sea level, giving a wide view across the Atlas Highlands. Its steepest section folds into repeated hairpin turns, making the whole route look like a ribbon sliding down the mountainside. Because of strong temperature expansion between day and night, large rock slabs often break loose and fall onto the road without warning. Although the region is dry, rainfall in the upper valley can still create flash floods that rush through the gorge within minutes and sweep away everything in their path. In contrast to that danger, the area lies near the Magoon Valley, which is famous for rose production, so the air can sometimes carry a light floral scent across the dry mountains. Shimshal Valley Road often ranks among the most dangerous roads on Earth in adventure travel coverage. Over 18 years, local residents carved this road by hand into vertical limestone cliffs. The road has no divider or guardrail, with a towering rock wall on one side and a drop of hundreds of feet toward the Shimshal River on the other. It is so narrow that it barely fits drive jeep, leaving the outer wheels only inches from the cliff edge. When vehicles meet head-on, drivers may need to reverse for hundreds of feet along the steep edge, where one small mistake can cost a life. This is the only road connecting the highest village in the Hunza region, where about 2,000 Shimshal residents live. Diaobi Ling is known as the dinosaur spine of China and is considered one of the most dangerous and spectacular roads in the world. Seen from above, the road does not run around the mountain slope, but sits directly on top of a narrow, rocky ridge with steep abysses on both sides, creating the feeling of a thin thread laid on a knife edge. Unlike many modern mountain roads, several sections here have no guardrails or only low marker posts, so the road still keeps its original sense of danger. At its narrowest points, the surface is only wide enough for a single car, leaving no room for error even by a few inches. Strong gusts rising suddenly from the valley can shake tall vehicles and may even push them away from the narrow line of the road. Stepping onto the unguarded edge, you face clouds rising at waist level and the sensation of hanging above empty space while taking in a full 360-degree view of the Qinling Mountains. Yongwu Road is the longest flooded death road in China, built directly across Poyang Lake. This road can change form with the seasons, turning from a highway across green grassland in the dry season into a thin strip submerged underwater in the flood season. When the water rises to the right level, the road reflects the sky like a giant mirror, making drivers feel as if they are driving through the air. Unlike normal land roads, the marker posts here are not only for lane guidance, but also the only signs that help drivers identify the asphalt surface in the middle of the vast lake. This route has no dust, but it always carries the danger of slippery algae on the surface. Although it is a popular check-in location, traffic is completely banned when the water rises too high or strong waves appear. So visitors are usually advised to check the water level before coming. Trift Bridge is the highest and longest pedestrian cable suspension bridge in the Swiss Alps. It was not originally built for tourism, but as the only replacement solution after the Trift Glacier melted so quickly that it created a gorge too deep for people to cross on foot by land. At about 328 feet high and about 558 feet long, walking across it creates the feeling of hanging in open air directly above a blue glacial lake and floating ice blocks. The bridge has no support pillar in the middle and depends entirely on its cable system, which causes strong shaking and swaying with each step or whenever mountain wind moves through it. No motor vehicle can reach the bridge directly. You have to combine a cable car ride across a deep drop with a steep hiking route on rocky ground for more than 1.5 hours before you arrive. Tresuachaca Rope Bridge is known as the last hand-woven Inca rope bridge and is one of the very few ancient structures still maintained with its original traditional technique. The bridge crosses the violent Apurimac River between two steep rock walls in the Andes at an elevation of about 12,139 feet, so the entire crossing is tied directly to deep exposure and mountain terrain. This structure, about 98 feet long, has no nails, cables, or wooden support beams because it is woven entirely from coya grass, a local dry grass. Even though it is made completely from grass, the bridge can still hold the weight of dozens of people crossing at the same time. Once every year, about 1,000 villagers cut the old bridge loose and let it fall into the Apurimac River, then work together for 3 days to build a completely new bridge from the beginning. This bridge-building ritual has continued for more than 500 years, despite the fall of the Inca Empire and the period of Spanish colonial rule. Sacalobra Road is known as the Snake, and it is the route that holds a reputation for danger and dizziness at the highest level in Spain. In only about 8 miles, this road drops continuously from about 2,625 feet down to sea level, creating heavy pressure on both the brakes and the driver's nerves. There are more than 50 sharp turns along the route, so the person behind the wheel has almost no straight section long enough to relax their steering. Its main highlight is Noose de sa Corbata, where the road twists through a 270-degree loop and passes under itself, creating a loop structure that is rare on the world traffic map. Many sections run directly along limestone edges with no guardrail at all, or only with low stone barriers. Even with that level of danger, it remains a sacred route for cyclists, and many professional riders around the world want to conquer it at least once in their lives. Donghai Bridge is Shanghai's main sea-crossing expressway and is known as the Death Run across the ocean. Stretching about 20.2 miles entirely offshore, this single route forces drivers to keep moving through open water without seeing land on either side. The bridge is regularly hit by tropical superstorms and dense low sea fog that can reduce visibility to zero and turn every mile into an extreme visual test. To keep the bridge stable, engineers drove thousands of steel piles into the seabed with extremely high precision using satellite positioning systems. This bridge helped Shanghai overtake Singapore to become the world's busiest container port from 2010 to today. If it stopped for even one day, the global cargo supply chain would immediately be paralyzed. Tarim Desert Highway is the longest road in the world to cross shifting sand in the Taklamakan Desert. The route is about 343 miles long, and 277 miles of it run directly through the uninhabited core of the desert. To stop sand from invading the road, more than 20 million drought-resistant trees have been planted along both sides, forming an ecological corridor more than 248 miles long in the middle of the wasteland. If a technical failure stops the water flow for a few days, the entire route can be erased under millions of tons of sand. Driving here means facing near total isolation because only one small guard station appears every 2.5 miles as a rare sign of life. Recently, China began replacing pumps with solar panels, turning Tarim Desert Highway into the country's first carbon-free desert road. Duku Highway is described by backpackers and many travel magazines as the most beautiful road in China. Across only 349 miles, this route passes through 5 completely different types of landscape, from burning desert, red rock canyons, and green grasslands, to ancient cypress forests, and finally, a world of permanent ice. Some sections are cut directly into limestone cliffs, while deep drop-offs below force any driver to maintain full concentration. To build a route through this dangerous terrain, more than 168 soldiers lost their lives, which means about 1 person died for every 2 miles of road. Because of heavy snowfall and landslide risk, the road is closed for more than 200 days each year. When it is reopened in June, rescue crews must use specialized snow-clearing vehicles capable of blasting away snow layers about 16 to 33 feet thick. Holy Island Causeway is known as the Road of Races Against Time. Twice each day, this paved road disappears completely under seawater and cuts off contact between the island and the mainland according to the lunar tidal cycle. The water does not rise slowly, but rushes through the sand channels at very high speed, enough to surround anyone careless within just a few minutes. Along the route are rescue shelters built on tall posts, serving as the last refuge for people who fail to escape before the road is fully covered. Beyond the rising water, the area also contains dangerous quicksand and sea fog that can erase visibility, leaving visitors disoriented in the middle of the crossing. The greatest challenge here is not driving skill, but time judgment. Just 5 minutes delay before closing time, and you'll helplessly watch your refreshing ocean vanish in the blink of an eye. Lethbridge Viaduct is known as the Steel Giant and once held the record as the highest and longest railway bridge in the world. The structure used more than 12,200 tons of steel, equal to about 1.5 times the entire Eiffel Tower in Paris, and was fastened by a maze of 634,000 rivets driven fully by hand. With a length of 5,328 feet and a height of 315 feet, close to a 30-story apartment building, the bridge appears like a dark line cutting across the sky. The whole structure is supported by 33 steel towers shaped like spider legs, helping it stand against extremely strong winds that regularly sweep across the wide open plain. After more than a century, the bridge still uses its original steel structure without going through any restoration work. The viaduct also shortened the journey by about 30 minutes and made rail transport safer than the earlier route across 20 wooden bridges. Dachstein Suspension Bridge is known as the Balcony of the Alps, and it is also one of the most spectacular places on Earth for testing human courage. The bridge is anchored directly into the sheer southern cliff of the Dachstein Massif, forming a steel structure suspended high in the clouds at nearly 9,843 feet. Although it looks as thin as a ribbon, it can withstand winds of up to 155 miles per hour, equal to a Category 17 super typhoon, along with massive snow loads. The drama comes from its steel mesh floor and reinforced glass panels, forcing every visitor to face an abyss hundreds of feet deep through the movement and vibration under each step. It is also one of Austria's most famous check-in spots because of the Stairway to Nothingness, which consists of 14 glass steps with no steel frame underneath for support. Lena River Ice Road is known as the most dangerous ice road in the world. This transport route is actually a sheet of ice more than 3 feet thick, formed directly above the still-moving Lena River, where cracks can seal themselves when freezing water rises and hardens almost instantly in temperatures of minus 50 degrees Celsius. Even though it works like a highway, the speed limit stays very low, because if a vehicle moves too fast, shock waves beneath the ice can fracture the surface ahead and pull the vehicle into the river. During the transition season, when the ice is too thin for trucks, but still too thick for boats, travel depends on hovercraft sliding across scattered, drifting ice. Despite the risk, this remains the vital route for delivering more than 80% of the essential goods needed by Yakutsk. If this ice line is lost, Yakutia will be completely cut off from escape. The Alpine Tateyama-Kurobe route is known as the Roof of Japan and lies in one of the snowiest regions on Earth. Its most famous section is the Yuki no Otani Snow Corridor, where snow walls rise as high as about 66 feet and form a deep passage through snow as thick as a 6-story building. To complete the route, travelers must connect through 6 different transport systems, including mountain tunnels, electric buses, ropeways, and mountain rail cars. Because snow completely covers every trace of the road, specialized snow-clearing vehicles must use GPS satellite positioning to find the exact route buried underneath. Private cars are strictly banned here, and all vehicles moving through the mountain tunnel must be electric buses or battery-powered transport to protect the alpine ecosystem. Because of the sheer volume of snowfall, the entire route is fully closed for 5 months each year, from December to mid-April. Known as the Sanctuary of Hairpin Turns, Furka Pass is one of the highest and most dangerous mountain roads in Europe. At an elevation of about 7,969 feet, the paved road winds like a ribbon across grey limestone slopes. It is also one of the few mountain passes in the world that allows drivers to reach a point extremely close to the foot of an ancient glacier. Located beside a sharp curve, the Belvedere Hotel became one of the most photographed places in the world. But it is now closed and remains as a silent marker of the pass's history. Here, snowstorms and dense fog can appear within minutes, erase visibility, and turn the road into a white surface with no clear direction. Because of heavy snowfall and extreme risk, this route stays closed for 8 months each year and opens only from June to October when weather conditions allow. Shueshan Township Cliff Road is known as the Cliff-Hanging Road and is regarded as one of the highest cliff-hugging roads in the world. The road is cut horizontally into the mountainside, forming a thin passage attached to a nearly 90-degree vertical rock wall. At bottleneck sections, the surface fits only a standard wheel track, with no shoulder, no guardrail, and no concrete reinforcement. With a vertical drop of about 5,971 feet to the river valley, a passenger looking out the side window sees no ground, only a deep, open void below. Here, even a very small mistake, such as pressing the wrong pedal or steering off by 1 centimeter, can create a severe outcome because the free fall distance is so great. Although it looks like an extreme route, this is actually an essential public road connecting the Shuishan area with the outside world. Zuluk Loops is considered the road section with the highest concentration of hairpin turns in the world. Depending on the slope of the terrain, this route contains about 32 to 34 consecutive hairpin bends within a short stretch, creating a dense system of curves stacked across the mountainside. The road is built in a vertical layered form, so the upper bend almost sits directly above the lower bend. Because the metamorphic rock base is unstable, even a small rain can trigger landslides and send large rocks from the upper level straight onto the lower level in a chain reaction. In the cold season, the road surface can develop a thin, transparent layer of ice that is difficult to detect, turning sharp bends beside the cliff into sections with almost no grip. Shiziguan is also known as the Waterway Dream, and it is a unique architectural structure located in Hubei Province, China. The bridge is about 1,640 feet long and curves along a green river through a deep gorge, creating a broad view across the surrounding landscape. The most distinctive aspect of this process is that the entire upgrade is supported by high-intensity buoyancy technology and directly on the water surface. While driving across it, visitors can feel both the cool air rising from the gorge and the gentle motion of the water beneath the bridge deck. At the same time, the deck sits very close to the water and does not have solid protective guardrails on both sides, which creates clear, psychological pressure for people who fear heights or water. To control wave movement and keep the floating structure safe, the traffic speed on the bridge is strictly limited to about 12 miles per hour. The Kandy to Ella Railway is regarded as the most beautiful train journey on Earth and is known for its remarkable natural scenery in South Asia. This line was originally built by the British in the 19th century not for passengers, but to transport coffee and later tea from the highlands down to the port of Colombo. The train passes through the Ceylon tea region, where green tea fields cover the mountain slopes for miles. The most memorable experience is the open carriage doors, which allow travelers to sit by the doorway with their legs hanging over open space, while highland wind hits their face directly. However, this action can sometimes be very risky. Although the route is only about 99 miles long, the train still takes 7 to 10 hours to complete it, sometimes moving slowly enough for passengers to make out each row of tea beside the track. Even today, railway staff still use metal tokens to control trains on the single track, a method of operation dating back to the Victorian era. Sugaru Iwaki skyline is regarded as the road with the highest density of sharp turns in Japan. Within a distance of only 6.2 miles, this route packs in exactly 69 consecutive hairpin turns, creating the most intense steering density in the entire country. That means drivers face a near 180-degree turn about every 492 feet, so their arms almost never get a chance to fully straighten. Along this stretch, the driver has to maintain constant arm control and full concentration because there is almost no straight section long enough to reset the rhythm. At exposed turns above about 3,281 feet, winds blowing in from the Sea of Japan can strike suddenly and shake taller vehicles hard. Guangxing Highway is known as the Death Road of Guizhou because many sections force vehicles to move through suspended space between mountain rock and deep ravines. The most intense point is Beipanjiang Bridge, where drivers must control their vehicles at a height of more than 1,181 feet, equal to hanging on top of a 120-story tower. Several parts of the route have no natural ground beneath them and are fixed directly into vertical limestone cliffs by massive support columns, creating a narrow and exposed corridor. While driving across Beipanjiang Bridge, travelers can feel light vibration from mountain winds as the entire view below opens directly toward a deep abyss with no barrier in sight. Because of this road, crossing this rugged region once took many days, but now it takes only hours. For more than 60 years without a rival, Lake Pontchartrain has remained the longest continuous bridge over water in the world. The bridge is about 23.9 miles long, and when drivers reach the middle section, all four sides reduce to open water and the horizon, with no visible land reference for orientation. In fact, this is a pair of separate parallel bridges, with the first southbound bridge completed in 1956 and the second northbound bridge completed in 1969 to handle increasing traffic volume. To support its full length, the structure stands on more than 9,000 concrete piers, and the bridge sections were also precast and assembled directly over the water. Because of its extreme length, the bridge has police and rescue patrols operating 20 out of 24 hours. They regularly deal with vehicles that run out of fuel, suffer tire problems, or drivers affected by fear of wide open space when no land is visible.
So hard, I have to turn back! Whoa! Be careful! How to solve this?
Aha, this road looks amazing, right? It isn't real.